My name is Nadine, and for 30 years, I lived what I thought was a perfect life. My husband, Tom, and I had built a beautiful home just outside the city limits, where we enjoyed the serenity of nature without being too far from modern conveniences. Our pride and joy was our son, Michael. From an early age, it was clear he had inherited his father's sharp mind and my determination. We watched with delight as he excelled in his studies, eventually earning his bachelor's degree and moving on to pursue a master's. His passion for science was evident, and we were certain he was destined for greatness. As Michael grew into a young man, he began dating a lovely girl named Emily. I remember the day he first brought her home. Her warm smile and kind eyes immediately won me over. Over time, Emily became like a daughter to me. We'd spend hours in the kitchen, sharing recipes and laughing over Michael's childhood antics. I'd watch her and Michael together, their love evident in every glance and gentle touch, and I'd dream of the day they'd make their union official. One evening, Michael came home looking unusually worried. His brow was furrowed, and he seemed distracted during dinner. As I cleared the plates, I couldn't help but ask, "Is everything all right, sweetheart? You seem troubled." Michael hesitated for a moment before responding. "Actually, Mom, I wanted to talk to you and Dad about something. I've been offered an internship in the neighboring state. It's a great opportunity, but it means I'd have to leave for a few months." I froze, the plate in my hand forgotten. "An internship? But what about your studies? And Emily? Is this even possible in the middle of your program?" Before Michael could respond, Tom interjected. "Now, Nadine, let's not jump to conclusions. This could be a wonderful opportunity for Michael. Remember, it's his life, and he needs to make his own decisions." I looked at Tom, then back at Michael. Something didn't feel right, but I couldn't put my finger on what it was. "Of course," I said finally, trying to keep the doubt out of my voice. "If this is what you want, Michael, we support you." Months passed, and the house felt emptier without Michael's presence. I tried to keep myself busy, tending to our garden and volunteering at the local community center, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. The occasional texts and brief phone calls from Michael did little to ease my concern. When Michael finally returned, I expected things to go back to normal. But life had other plans. "Mom, Dad," he announced one evening, his voice oddly detached, "I've decided to move out. I found an apartment in the city." I exchanged a glance with Tom, surprise evident on both our faces. "That's quite sudden, isn't it?" I ventured carefully. Michael shrugged. "I think it's time I had my own space. You know, to grow and be independent." Tom, ever the supportive father, nodded. "If that's what you want, son, we support you." "Right, Nadine?" I forced a smile. "Of course. We're just a bit surprised, that's all." "What about Emily? Will she be moving in with you?" A flicker of something, was it discomfort, crossed Michael's face. "No, it'll just be me for now. Emily and I, we're taking things slow." The weeks that followed were difficult. Michael's visits became increasingly rare, replaced by text messages that always seemed to end with requests for money. Each time, I'd transfer the funds, hoping that this would be the last time, that soon he'd find his footing. "Don't you think we should talk to him about the money?" I asked Tom one night. "It's becoming a habit." Tom sighed. "He's trying to establish himself, Nadine. It's not easy starting out on your own. Give him time." I nodded, unconvinced but unwilling to push the issue. Then, one afternoon, my phone rang. It was Michael. "Mom," he said, his voice oddly cheerful, "I'm coming over for dinner tonight. And I have some important news to share." My heart leapt. Could it be? Were he and Emily finally engaged? I spent the afternoon cooking up a storm, preparing all of Michael's favorites. As evening fell, I heard a car pull up in the driveway. Tom and I exchanged excited glances as we went to greet them. The door opened, and Michael stepped in. But the woman who followed him wasn't Emily. She was a stranger, stunningly beautiful, with long dark hair and striking green eyes. Her outfit was flashy and revealing, a stark contrast to Emily's modest style. "Mom, Dad," Michael said, his arm around the woman's waist. "I'd like you to meet Veronica, my wife." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. I gripped the back of a chair to steady myself. "Your wife?" I repeated, certain I must have misheard. "That's right," Veronica spoke up, her voice sharp and clear. "We got married last week." I looked at Tom, hoping to see my shock mirrored on his face, but he just looked confused. "Why didn't you tell us?" I blurted out, unable to contain myself. "We're your parents, Michael. We should have been there." Veronica's lips curled into a smirk. "Michael doesn't need to explain himself to strangers." Her words hit me like a physical blow. "Strangers? We were his parents." Michael cleared his throat awkwardly. "Let's sit down and eat, shall we? I'll explain everything." As we sat around the dinner table, an uncomfortable silence settled over us. I mechanically served the food, my mind still reeling from the shock of Michael's announcement. Tom, bless him, tried to break the ice. "So, Michael," he began, his voice carefully neutral, "tell us about the wedding." It must have been quite an event. Michael's face lit up, and for a moment, I saw a glimpse of my old son. "It was amazing, Dad. We had it at the Belmont Hotel downtown. You should have seen it, chandeliers, live band, gourmet food." Veronica looked absolutely stunning in her dress. I couldn't help myself. "And you didn't think to invite us to this amazing wedding?" The hurt in my voice was palpable. Veronica answered before Michael could. "It was my idea, actually." Her tone was cool, almost challenging. "I don't have any family, you see. My parents abandoned me years ago, and my grandmother, who raised me, passed away recently." Michael jumped in, his words tumbling out in a rush. "That's why we decided not to invite any family at all. We just celebrated with friends." I didn't want Veronica to feel out of place. I stared at my son, barely recognizing him. The boy I raised would never have excluded his family from such an important event. "I see," I said slowly. "And what about Emily? What happened there?" Michael's face clouded over. "Emily, she cheated on me. That's why I left her." An awkward silence fell over the table. I wanted to ask more questions, to understand how everything had changed so drastically, but Veronica's hostile attitude made me hesitate. Instead, I tried to change the subject. "So, Veronica, tell us about yourself. What do you do for a living?" Veronica's eyes narrowed. "I don't see how that's any of your business." "I'm just trying to get to know you," I said, taken aback by her rudeness. "Well, I'm not obliged to share my personal life with outsiders," Veronica retorted, standing up abruptly. "Michael, I think it's time we left." Michael looked torn, but he stood up as well. "Yeah, maybe that's best. Mom, could you pack up some of this food for us? And, we were hoping you could transfer some money for our honeymoon." I was too stunned to argue. I mechanically packed up some food and watched as Michael and Veronica headed for the door. As they left, I heard Veronica mutter, "I told you this was a waste of time." The door closed behind them, leaving Tom and me in shocked silence. That night, I tossed and turned, unable to sleep. The next morning, I decided to call Michael, hoping to have a frank conversation without Veronica's interference. The phone rang several times before someone picked up. "Hello?" It was Veronica's voice. "Oh, hello Veronica. Is Michael there? I'd like to speak with him." "He's busy," she said curtly. "What do you want?" I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "I just wanted to talk to my son." "Well, he can't talk right now. If you want to send money for our honeymoon, you can transfer it to his card. Otherwise, we have nothing to discuss." Before I could respond, she hung up. I stared at the phone in disbelief, then slowly, mechanically, made the transfer. The days passed, and the tension in our household remained palpable. The house felt emptier than ever, the silence broken only by the occasional ping of my phone, inevitably another request for money from Michael. Then, one afternoon, my phone rang. It was Michael. "Mom," he said, his voice a mix of excitement and nervousness. "I have some news. Veronica's pregnant. You're going to be a grandmother." For a moment, I was speechless. A grandchild? Despite everything, a small spark of joy ignited in my heart. "Oh, Michael," I breathed, that's wonderful news." "Yeah, it is," he agreed, sounding more like his old self than he had in months. "But, we need some help. Preparing for a baby is expensive, and with Veronica not working." Of course. I should have known there was a catch. "How much do you need?" I asked, trying to keep the weariness out of my voice. He named a sum that made me wince, but I agreed. What else could I do? This was my grandchild we were talking about. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Despite my reservations about Veronica, I threw myself into preparing for my future grandchild. I bought tiny clothes, researched the safest cribs, even started knitting a baby blanket. Then, one sunny afternoon, everything changed again. I was in the garden when I heard a car pull up. Thinking it might be the mailman, I went to check. To my shock, it was Michael and Veronica. As they got out of the car, I noticed something different about Veronica. The arrogance in her bearing seemed amplified, her eyes glinting with a determination that sent a chill down my spine. "Michael, Veronica," I said, trying to keep my voice light. "What a surprise. Come in, I'll make some tea." "We're not here for tea, Mother," Michael said, his voice oddly flat. "We need to talk." Confused and a little scared, I led them into the living room. Tom, hearing the commotion, joined us. Veronica wasted no time with pleasantries. She looked around the room with a critical eye, then turned to us. "We've decided that we're going to live here." I blinked, sure I had misheard. "I'm sorry, what?" "You heard me," Veronica said, her tone brooking no argument. "For the proper development of our child, we need space and freedom. This house is perfect." I looked at Michael, expecting him to laugh, to say it was all a joke. But he just stood there, avoiding my gaze. "This is our home," Tom said, his voice firm. "You can't just decide to take it." Veronica's eyes narrowed. "Oh? And I suppose you want your grandchild to grow up in some cramped apartment? How selfish of you." I felt my temper rising. "Now listen here, young lady." "No, you listen," Veronica snapped. "Either you give us this house, or you can forget about having any relationship with your son and your grandchild. Your choice." With that, she turned on her heel and stormed out, Michael trailing behind her like a lost puppy. In the days following Michael and Veronica's shocking demand, our once peaceful life descended into chaos. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from Michael, each one more aggressive than the last. "You need to move out by the end of the month," one read. "Stop being selfish and think about your grandchild," said another. One afternoon, about 2 weeks after their visit, there was a pounding at our door. I opened it to find Michael standing there, his face contorted with rage. "Why haven't you started packing?" he demanded, pushing past me into the house. "Michael," I said, trying to keep my voice calm, "this is our home. We're not leaving." His eyes flashed dangerously. "You don't understand. Veronica is threatening to leave me if we don't get this house. She says she won't raise our child in some crappy apartment." I felt a surge of anger. "And you're okay with kicking your parents out of their home? The home where you grew up? You don't get it," he shouted. "Veronica is worth more than a stupid house. She's worth more than you." His words hit me like a physical blow. I staggered back, tears springing to my eyes. Tom, hearing the commotion, came rushing in. "What's going on here?" Michael turned on him. "Tell her, Dad, tell her to stop being so selfish." Tom's face hardened. "I think you need to leave, Michael. Now." For a moment, I thought Michael might hit him. But then, with a final glare of disgust, he stormed out, slamming the door behind him. The next few weeks were a nightmare. Michael's messages became increasingly erratic and abusive. We stopped answering his calls, unable to bear hearing the stranger our son had become. Then, one morning, we woke to find our house defaced. Crude insults were spray-painted across our front door and windows. "Greedy old fools," one read. "Selfish parents," said another. Tom and I stood in shocked silence, staring at the damage. "It must have been kids," Tom said finally, but we both knew the truth. That evening, as we sat in our living room, emotionally exhausted, Tom turned to me with a determined look in his eyes. "Nadine," he said, "I'm thinking of hiring a private investigator. Someone who can dig into Veronica's background, find out who she really is and what she wants." A part of me recoiled at the idea of spying on our son. But another part, the part that was tired of being hurt and confused, agreed. As we waited for the private investigator to gather information, life took another unexpected turn. One afternoon, while shopping for groceries, I heard a familiar voice call my name. "Nadine? Is that you?" I turned to see Emily, Michael's ex-fiancée, standing a few feet away. My heart skipped a beat when I saw her rounded belly. She was clearly pregnant. "Emily," I gasped, memories of Michael's accusation flooding back. "How are you?" She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I'm managing. It's not easy being pregnant and alone." We stood in awkward silence for a moment, both of us unsure how to navigate this unexpected reunion. Finally, I gathered my courage. "Emily, I heard about what happened between you and Michael. He said you cheated on him. That's why he left." Emily's face crumpled, tears welling in her eyes. "Oh, Nadine. That's not what happened at all. Michael left me for Veronica. When I found out I was pregnant and called him, he said he was already married to someone else. He refused to have anything to do with the baby." I felt as if the ground had dropped out from under me. I leaned against my shopping cart for support, my mind reeling. I had no idea. "Emily, please let me help. You shouldn't have to go through this alone." She hesitated. "I don't want to be a burden." "Nonsense," I said firmly. "You're carrying my grandchild. Let me be there for you both." After some gentle persuasion, Emily agreed. In the evening of the same day, a bell rang in our house. It was the private investigator we had hired to look into Michael and Veronica's situation. His voice was urgent as he requested an immediate meeting. Within the hour, we found ourselves sitting across from Detective Harris in a small, nondescript office. The grim expression on his face told us that whatever he had discovered wasn't good. "Mr. and Mrs. Thompson," he began, his voice grave, "I've uncovered some disturbing information about your son and his wife." He proceeded to lay out the facts, each one feeling like a blow to my heart. Michael had dropped out of university, abandoning his promising future in science. He was now working a menial job, struggling to support Veronica's extravagant lifestyle. "I managed to bug their apartment," Detective Harris continued. "In one conversation, I overheard them discussing plans to force you out of your home and claim it for themselves." I gasped, gripping Tom's hand tightly. How could they even think of doing such a thing? The detective's expression darkened further. "There's more." I dug into Veronica's past. "It seems she has a history of targeting wealthy men for their money. She's done this before, Mrs. Thompson. And the pregnancy, it's not your son's child." The room seemed to spin around me. "What do you mean?" I whispered. "Veronica was already pregnant when she met Michael. She trapped him, Mrs. Thompson. She saw him as an easy mark, a naive young man with wealthy parents." Tom's face had turned ashen. "Do you have proof of all this?" Detective Harris nodded, sliding a file across the desk. "It's all in here. Bank statements, medical records, even transcripts of their conversations. It's ironclad." As we left the detective's office, my mind was in turmoil. "We have to tell Michael," I said to Tom. "We have to make him see what Veronica really is." But Tom shook his head sadly. "He won't believe us, Nadine. You've seen how he is around her. He's completely under her spell. If we confront him with this, he'll only push us further away." Deep down, I knew Tom was right. The son we knew and loved seemed to be gone, replaced by this angry, manipulated stranger. The thought broke my heart all over again. The weeks following our meeting with Detective Harris were a whirlwind of activity. I threw myself into helping Emily prepare for the baby's arrival, finding solace in the simple act of caring for someone who truly needed me. We spent our days shopping for baby clothes, assembling furniture, and discussing birth plans. One morning, as Tom and I were having our morning coffee, we heard a commotion outside. What we saw made my blood run cold. There, spray painted across our front wall in angry red letters, were the words "selfish old bastards." "That's it," Tom said, his voice tight with anger. "I'm calling the police." But before he could reach for the phone, our neighbor from across the street, Mr. Jenkins, came rushing over. "I saw what happened," he said, breathlessly. "I've got it all on my security camera." We huddled around Mr. Jenkins' phone, watching the grainy footage. My heart sank as I recognized the figure in the video. It was Michael, his face contorted with rage as he defaced our home. "I can't believe it," I whispered, tears stinging my eyes. "Our own son." Tom put his arm around me, his face grim. "We need to make a decision, Nadine. We can't live like this anymore." And so, we made the hardest choice of our lives. We decided to cut ties with Michael completely. We didn't confront him about the graffiti. Instead, we quietly put our house on the market, found a buyer, and began packing up our lives. Just as we were finalizing the sale, Emily went into labor. I was by her side throughout the grueling 18-hour ordeal, holding her hand and offering words of encouragement. When her beautiful baby boy finally arrived, I felt a surge of love I hadn't experienced since Michael was born. A week after the birth, Emily approached me with a serious look on her face. "Nadine," she said, "I want to do a DNA test. I know Michael is the father, but I want it officially confirmed." I agreed, and within days, we had the results. There was no doubt, the baby was indeed Michael's son. Tom and I moved into our new home, conveniently located just a few blocks from Emily's apartment. We threw ourselves into grandparent duties with gusto, babysitting, buying gifts, and showering our grandson with all the love we had. Then, one afternoon, my phone rang. It was an unknown number, but something made me answer it. "Mom?" It was Michael's voice, angry and confused. "What the hell is going on?" I went to the house and there were strangers there. They threatened to call the cops on me. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. "Why were you there, Michael? To spray paint more insults on the walls?" There was a long pause. When Michael spoke again, his voice was small, almost childlike. I didn't mean," he stuttered, then his voice hardened again. "This is all your fault. Veronica's threatening to leave me because of you. I'll never see my son." I couldn't help it, I laughed. A sad, bitter laugh. "Oh, Michael, that child isn't your son. Veronica was already pregnant when she met you. We have proof of everything, her past, her lies, all of it." "You're lying," he shouted. "No, Michael. For once, I'm telling you the unvarnished truth. Check your email. I've sent you all the evidence our private investigator uncovered." There was silence on the other end of the line as Michael presumably checked his phone. "Your real son," I continued, my voice softening, "the one you abandoned, was born last week. He's beautiful, Michael. And he deserves better than a father who would throw him away for a lie." With that, I hung up the phone, my heart heavy, but my resolve strong. As I looked out the window and saw Tom playing with our grandson in the backyard, I knew we had made the right decision. Our family might be smaller now, but it was filled with more love than ever before. 6 months flew by in a whirlwind of baby giggles, sleepless nights, and the joy of watching our grandson grow. Tom and I had settled into our new life, finding unexpected happiness in our roles as grandparents and surrogate parents to Emily. One sunny afternoon, as we were enjoying tea with our neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez, she leaned in conspiratorially. "Did you hear about your Michael?" she asked, her eyes wide with gossip. My heart skipped a beat. "No, what about him?" Mrs. Rodriguez proceeded to fill us in on the latest neighborhood gossip. Apparently, Veronica had abandoned Michael, leaving him shell-shocked and alone. The baby, it turned out, had been handed over to Veronica's parents, who, contrary to her earlier claims, were very much alive and well. The final twist of the knife was that Veronica had run off with a wealthy businessman, leaving Michael with nothing but broken dreams and empty promises. Later that evening, as Tom and I were discussing the news, my phone rang. It was Michael. "Mom," he said, his voice cracking with emotion. "I'm so sorry. For everything. I was such a fool. Can you ever forgive me?" I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath. "Michael, your father and I have changed our will. Our estate will go to your son, your real son, the one you abandoned." There was a moment of stunned silence, then Michael's voice rose in panic. "But Mom, that's not fair. I want to make things right. I want to get back together with Emily, to be a family again." "It's too late for that, Michael," I said, my voice softening slightly. "Emily and your son are part of our family now, but you made your choices. You have to live with the consequences." "But Mom," he started to shout, but I had heard enough. I ended the call, my hand shaking slightly as I set down the phone. The next few weeks were a blur of activity. Emily and the baby moved into the guest house on our property, allowing us to be even more involved in our grandson's life. As I looked out at our little family, Tom playing peekaboo with our grandson, Emily laughing at their antics, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. Our path hadn't been easy, and the wounds from Michael's betrayal were still fresh. But we had found something beautiful in the aftermath of that pain, a new family, bound not by blood, but by love and choice.